I got a letter from my last choice school. I had a parent reading the letter over each shoulder, and the letter said, "You have been awarded a full tuition scholarship." My parents burst into tears, and I said, "I'm not going." It was my safety school. You know, the school that your kid applies to so they get in somewhere. I didn't want to go there. But they had my major as a major, which was kind of rare at the time. But in 8th grade, I had gone on vacation with my friend's family and we went to Maine. When I saw New England, I was sold. I was going to live there no matter what. And the first chance that most of us get to go anywhere we really want to go is college. So when the time came, I applied to Bowdoin College, which was my reach school, and that's in Maine. I applied to University of New England, also in Maine. And my realistic first choice, the University of New Hampshire. My big from high school was already there, so I would already have a friend, and I could already see myself, saving the earth and doing all the environmental things that I wanted to do up there. So I applied early admissions, and I got in November of my senior year. However, my family couldn't exactly write a check for all of the tuition, so I couldn't accept that until I heard about how much financial aid I was going to get. Well, you don't hear about the financial aid until May. Oh, gosh. So much for this early decision being done and having a carefree senior year. So little by little, money trickled in from New Hampshire. $50 here, $100 there, nothing really adding up to anything. My dad was very wise, and he said, "I can't see sending you to a state school that's not our state. You might as well go to private school." I couldn't argue with his math, but it was New Hampshire, and I really, really wanted to go. So my dad and I made a deal. He would give me the equivalent of a state school for our state, and I had to come up with the rest, which meant I needed to come up with $44,000 or $11,000 a year. So over the course of my senior year, I wasn't getting much from New Hampshire. And then I got this letter from my last choice school. I had 30 days to reply and accept. I waited until the 29th day. I hadn't heard enough from New Hampshire. So I accepted. I was going to state school, in state, not too far from home. The next day, I kid you not, a letter arrived from the University of New Hampshire. You've been awarded $11,000 per year for 4 years. I've never cried so hard in all my life. But you know what? I was a little salty with New Hampshire. So I said, forget it. I'm going to state. All the other scholarships I had were also going there. So it was kind of a pain to undo everything I had already agreed to do. So I thought, I'm just going to go. But here's the thing. I cried my whole way there. But I didn't know it at the time. It was step one of the best financial decisions I will ever make. So I get there, off to a rocky start. Didn't really like my roommate. She didn't really like me. She was great. She was just junior. I mean, who wants a freshman for a roommate when you're a junior? So anyway, I decided I am going to milk this school for all it's worth. And I got involved. So some of the benefits I found from going to my last choice school was that it was a small school, so it wasn't hard to stand out in a good way if you wanted to. I got to travel. That trip I talked about last week and going to the El Salvador on a mission trip, that was fully paid for by this public school education that I had. Lastly, the connections I made. That'll come back up later. When you send your kids to college and your kids go to college, you think, what's the big deal with loans? I remember thinking, what's the big deal? $44,000 in loans? I'll make it up in no time. And my dad was like, I don't know. And I was like, look at the stats on their graduates. You don't make always what the brochure says. You don't always get a job. When I graduated from college, so many of my friends had to take the first job that came along because those student loans were coming in the next 6 months. You know what I did the week after college? I got on a plane and I backpacked through Europe. For 1 whole month of my life, I was footloose, fancy-free, having the time of my life in Europe by myself, living my debt-free best life. I couldn't have done that if I had to get a job right away. The other thing is, I was applying for jobs in my field. They just weren't coming. So your kid might think that they're going to get a job right out of college, but it's not always guaranteed. In fact, the degree is not guaranteed. 56% of people that begin a 4-year degree actually get that degree. Do you want debt without the actual degree? No. Finally, in March the following year, I got kind of a job in my field teaching outdoor education, and it was in New England. So I did get to move up there. However, we worked such long hours that one day I did the math and realized that I was making $1.12 an hour. It was fine for me. And you know what? Guess who I lived with and guess who I taught with? A Bowdoin graduate. Yeah, we were both there making $1.12 an hour. So anyway, I finally got a job with benefits back home near my state school. And the reason I got it was because of the connections I had made during my internship. So that job was a really good first job, except it wasn't the high-paying job that we all hope to get. I made $21,000 my first year, you guys. These are the numbers that you need to have conversations with your kids. They might not start off at these great salaries that can even afford for them to pay back any loans. That job was a great job though, because again, I got such leadership experience and wonderful opportunities. My boss was also an alumni of the same state school that I went to, and he was on the alumni board. So when it came time for recommending somebody, guess who he recommended? Me. At 23 years old, I was on the alumni board of my university. And not only that, he recommended me for another board. So at 23 years old, I had 2 board positions, one for a nonprofit and one for my college. That's pretty darn good. And when my term on the board expired, guess what? I recommended a friend who also went to the same. Obviously, she had to be an alumni, but I recommended my friend. Again, it's not what you know, it's who you know so much in life. So when it came time to take a more lucrative path in corporate America, I felt very confident that the skills that I had learned in my first job were going to propel me into the next phase of my life. So when I went for an interview in New York City to be a pharmaceutical sales rep, and I'm sitting there with over 100 competitors, I was debt-free. And that means I was not desperate. Employers can feel the desperation, but because I didn't have that, I could almost take or leave this job. So I was completely confident, carefree, and when they offered me the job in the Bronx and they questioned like, can you really do this? Or like, you're coming from this small town. I was like, oh, did I tell you about my trip that I took to Europe all by myself when I was 21 years old? Yeah, I think I can handle the Bronx. If I can handle Europe and all the fun times there, I can definitely handle the Bronx. And I did, and it was awesome. And that job was the first step to building wealth. So I really encourage you to encourage your children to look at some schools that are going to be easier to get into and schools where they can raise their hand, get involved, make connections, and most importantly, not take on any debt. My husband has a similar story, and we are really fortunate that our choices of college were by far one of the best financial decisions we have ever made. Next week, I'm going to go a little bit more into going to college debt-free. Have a great week. Take care.